I think, first and foremost, you have to value your patients. Without your patients, you have no practice. You have no reason to be there. You have no reason to hire staff. You have no reason to pay rent. So first, you have to value the patients and what you do for them. So be grateful every day that you go in, that you get to go in, and that those patients are there and want to see you and not someone else.
Welcome to Investment Grade Practices Podcast, where we believe private practice dentists deserve to get the lifestyle today while building an asset for tomorrow. Join your host, Victoria Peterson, to design the practice of your dreams and secure your financial independence. Let's get started.
I am so pleased to be here with my new friend, Dr. Josh Brower from Sioux Falls, South Dakota. Dr. Josh, how are you doing today?
I'm great, Victoria. Thank you for the invitation. Appreciate being here.
You and I got to know each other in April during the Dental Tank, where we got to preview young startup companies and think about being advisors and investors. And it was such a pleasure getting to know you there.
Thank you. I really enjoyed meeting you and a bunch of the other, Shark Tank people that were there as kind of investors and evaluators of businesses. And of course, you click a little more with some people than others, and I definitely clicked with you. So I appreciate the opportunity to keep meeting you and talking with you over time.
Well, I love it. Thank you for being a guest here today. You are so interesting as a dentist, as a clinician, but also as a business person and an entrepreneur. And here on Investment Grade Practices, what I love to bring our audiences are just one or two amazing things that they can do to kind of get out of the cash flow rat race and into the position that they're building a valuable asset. And you have so many pearls. I think I'm going to have you on 2 or 3 times.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. My history is I'm about 25 years in practice, and I've had I'm licensed in 3 states. I've got 1 practice in 1 state now, and I used to have 3 practices in 2 states with different associates in each of the practices. And I did that, and I kind of made myself a little triangle, and I just did the specialty work at each of those practices for probably about, maybe a decade or so. And I really enjoyed the challenge, but at some point, you have to look at there's plenty of cash flow and not enough life flow. And so I decided to change things up a bit and reorient what I wanted to do with the future. So
I love that. I have never heard it put that way before. There's cash flow, plenty of cash flow, life flow.
Yeah, you like the cash flow versus life flow.
I do. Did you coin that?
I just coined it as we spoke, and you're welcome to, use it anytime you wish.
Okay, we're trademarking that right now to Dr. Josh. Well, that is perfect, because building an investment grade practice means you do find that balance and you're living the life that you love now, and you're not sacrificing cash flow. It maybe that drops a little bit, but what you're really doing is building value over time. So what changed for you, and how do you see value being baked into your company, into your practices?
Well, I think there's a lot of ways that you can build value. I think, first and foremost, you have to value your patients. Without your patients, you have no practice. You have no reason to be there. You have no reason to hire staff. You have no reason to pay rent. So first, you have to value the patients and what you do for them. So be grateful every day that you go in, that you get to go in, and that those patients are there and want to see you and not someone else. I had a friend one time tell me that he could look out his door and see 7 other dental offices, and that he would frequently get patients that had fired their dentist from across the parking lot for basically poor customer service. So I think value is something that you can really provide through customer service. It's a free thing, which is really nice. It just takes a smile, some time, and some thought. And it adds a lot of value to your practice without costing your practice a lot. I think that, people are willing to pay a lot more for Apple products because the customer experience is a much better one than with a PC or an Android product. And I think for that reason, you see Apple still thriving, and I think they'll continue to do that. So I think customer service is definitely something that is undervalued and under-focused on.
Mm-hmm. I love that. And I think in my monologue afterwards, I'm going to really highlight that, what are the nuances between customer service and customer experience? I'm really glad you brought that to the forefront.
Yeah, one little simple thing I do is I do a lot of surgery. That's kind of my background. And I have my business card, and my business card has the email on it that goes to my cell phone. And I always go up to them, I ask them if they have any questions at the end before we dismiss them. And I hand them my card and I say, the card doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is this email right here. It goes to the cell phone. I pull up my cell phone, I show it to them. I say, that email goes to this cell phone. Do not call the front desk. Just contact me and I'll take care of any problem you have. Just know that I'm here for you. And I thank them and I let them go.
Wow. That's amazing. And how often do they reach out to you?
I probably get at least 5 emails a week, I would say, because they keep that email and sometimes they'll ask things later, might not be initially after the surgery. Sometimes it'll be later. The trick of it is that sometimes they'll send me a scheduling question and then I just simply forward it to the front desk. Right. And so I only respond to the ones that are doctor specific, but I think it's a small price to pay for having them know that, I'm there for them and they're not going to call the front desk and get told the doctor will get the message and they may or may not get responded to. And it also gives me a written dialogue of what they've said to me and what I've said to them. So it's a nice way to legally reinforce all the things that I told them during the surgery and before that we went through in the consent forms.
That's amazing. Do your associate doctors do the same thing?
Well, at this stage, I don't have any associate doctors because I've been tapering things down. Mm-hmm. But when I had them, no, they didn't, in fact. Most of them would simply kind of dodge the patients, tell them to come in for an exam and they would see them. But none of them ever gave out their own personal contact information or asked the patients to contact them directly. All the patients for them had to go through the front desk. And I think there's a certain amount of, feeling that I wanted them to act like I did, but I also feel like you can micromanage and, maybe give them some problems with you taking away their value in your practice. So although I wanted them to do some things, sometimes you just have to let them do what makes them comfortable. Otherwise, there's not enough value in the practice for them to stay. So
True enough. So you lecture internationally. You're everywhere. Are you excited to get back on the road now that COVID is, the restrictions are lifting?
I am. Iceland has opened up, so I'm going to be going there over the 4th of July, which is kind of nice. Here's a little value tip. I tracked it for over 10 years, and the first week of July was the worst week of the year every year, and we were always full. The schedule never, ever wasn't full. People get excited. I have time off. You're going to be open. I'm going to get it all done. And we had the highest cancellation and failure rate of any week of the entire year. And it was always last minute. They'd call, I'm sorry, my spouse said that, we're going to go to the lake and I'm not going to get in trouble with my spouse. So, I'll pay your missed appointment fee or whatever it is, but I'm going to go do that. And so they chose their life flow over their workflow. And I just decided, you know what? I should be living life like they are and take that time off. So I've always taken the first week of July off since I finally did that math and figured that out. And my staff appreciate it. My patients rarely want to come in. So it's a good time not to be missed. And that's why I'm going to get to go to Iceland since they've opened up to vaccinated people. And then as far as the lecturing goes, the Indian Dental Implant Association meeting was canceled for COVID, and that's been rescheduled to September. So I'm looking forward to going over there. And right now they've had some COVID spikes, but I expect those to be kind of tapered down by September. So yeah, I'm really excited to get back out there.
That's great. And as you're lecturing and you're talking to dentists about, being a smart business owner and growing, what's one great piece of advice that almost anyone could use to make their business better?
Well, just don't overspend where you don't have to. There are certain things that you want to spend money on. And my philosophy and what I've told people, because I've done a lot of mentoring and business coaching, is very simple. Like, I'm not going to tell you not to not spend money. If I want to buy a big speaker system, I don't want anybody to tell me that doesn't have value, because maybe it does to me. But what you really need to look at is, somewhat of a farmer perspective, since I'm from South Dakota, that they don't spend money unless it can make them money. And I would tell them that if they're going to spend money, first look at, will it make you money? And if it won't, that's fine. But then you have to look at, am I buying this because I want to buy it and not because I need it? And that's fine as well. But then you have to look at, do I have the cash flow to buy things I want that I don't need? So I know I'm not going to make money. I want it, but do I have the money to spend knowing that it's not going to help? Sometimes you can just, say, well, I want to have this laser in my practice, and I'm going to market the laser, and it's going to bring in patients for other reasons, and it's going to cross-sell with the procedures, and I'm going to upsell my cleanings and, with this laser treatment. And maybe you can say that, but I have found many times over decades of practice that very few of the high end, we're talking $50,000+ pieces of equipment, are going to really generate long-term cash flow for me directly. So could I say indirectly through a lot of other things? Very much so. I would say the exception to that rule right now is a CAT scan machine, because there's so many billable codes for it. Yeah. It's useful in diagnosing so much more treatment, and it allows you to do procedures you couldn't do before surgically at a much higher level of competency. So that is probably my one exception to, make sure you own one if you don't. And beyond that, I always go with the hedgehog principle. If it's what your focus is, then you should probably look at spending money there. If it's not your focus, maybe you should try to talk yourself out of spending money, if it's not what you do. I don't do a lot of full mouth rehab with veneer cases, so it would be hard for me to, invest in a lot of systems that would help me do that. But I do a lot of surgery. So, I have 2 CAT scan machines in my office, and I think it's a good value to have 2. We can always use, more chairs and more CAT scans. It just seems like that's something I know that will always generate the income. So I like that method of spend the money where I'm going to make the money.
I love that. And you have a real clear sense of your revenue drivers, and I can hear in your voice and in your language, you're not easily persuaded to come out of that. And it has nothing to do with abundance or scarcity and the wild misuse of both of those words. It's about knowing your core values and your strengths and where you want to play. And I love that. You don't seem easily distracted.
No, I am easily distracted like any dentist if it's interesting or neat, but not when it comes to business. I attended a meeting maybe 15 years ago, and Victoria, you've been in the industry a long time. Maybe you were one of the people there too, but this was a meeting for people who were struggling in their business. And I happened to be walking by, and I tucked my head in the room, and the room was really full. And that kind of surprised me. And the lecturer had one thing that he said that I kind of took away as a pearl, because I heard him say, he goes, raise your hand if you do dentistry as a hobby. And of course, nobody raised their hand. And then the next question, that he had was, well, why are you treating this like a hobby then and not a business? And so I think that that's a factor that people get into, especially the farther you go in your career. Where do you draw the line on, is this making money or is it just something I want to do? And, everybody has their line in the sand, but I feel that like the earlier you are in your career path, you may have some debt, you may have, other things that require your cash flow. And so maybe you should be a little more business focused, especially earlier in the business, because that's probably where you're going to make it or break it for your whole career. Because if you don't get that money, saved early or paid down early, you're going to be losing compounded interest or gaining compounded interest for decades. And that's really going to make it so you can retire or not retire.
I love it. Well, thank you for spending time with me today, Dr. Brower. I've got so many pearls. I think we may title this one, is it a hobby or a true business? I've got a lot of clarity on that.
No, that's great. And thank you so much for having me, Victoria. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. how can people get in touch with you if they want to book you as a speaker in their study club or recommend you to a conference or other things that you do?
Sure. I run a bunch of different Facebook groups, but I also have a website called getdentaltraining.com, and there's a Facebook group that's through there. So you can contact me through the website or through any of the Facebook groups. And if you're on Facebook, you can message me directly or just reach out and ask for some help, and I'll give it to you.
I love it. Well, we'll get all of that in the show notes. Thank you so much for joining us here on Investment Grade Practices, where Heartland dentists love the life that they're living today and building an asset for tomorrow.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Investment Grade Practices Podcast. If you find value in this episode, help us spread the word by passing it along to a dental friend, subscribe, and give us a like on iTunes or Spotify. Learn more about building your investment grade practice at productivedentist.com today.